meeting to discuss everything.
This is a call meeting.
You were at that meeting, and it's, I mean, you've gone over everything. I have talked to different council members over the telephone. It has been discussed, with Councilman Tuck, yourself, and other council members, so it's not like this is the first time that we've seen this.
We haven't sat together to discuss this period. You say you talk to each one of us individually. That's the way we do business.
So yesterday, you and I sat down in my office and we went over everything.
Yesterday. This is a call meeting, and we should, why we not doing this at the regular meeting? Why we hurrying up on this, and then we gotta add another, how many thousand to this? Cause if I ain't mistaken, Scarborough said we was only gonna pay $400,000, so why we going up now?
Councilman Colors, I think,
I'm asking the administrator, I'm not talking to you. I want the administrator to answer this. She's supposed to be running the city, she need to explain to me why are we going up on it now? When he, at the first meeting, made the motion that it's only gonna cost us
That's right.
$400,000.
He made a motion to go into contract negotiations at $400,000. That's what he gave me authority to do, and that's what we started
That's
doing.
what he gave you authority?
That's what y'all gave us authority to do.
Read that motion that he made, it said that $400,000.
You haven't
We don't
read
have
it.
it. We need to read
Read
it.
the original motion. That was, motion by, Councilman Scarborough.
Do you want me to read it? or-
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay. I move that all monies in the current budget for the police department be reduced to zero, July 18th, 2014, 5 p.m., unless mayor reaches an agreement with Sheriff sooner. That the mayor, along with the administrator and the city attorney, be authorized to enter into 2 contracts. First, with the county for payment for the sheriff to provide protection in the city not to exceed $400,000
Let's start with that.
for a 12-month period.
And
Not
we
to
already,
exceed
we already
400,000.
seen, so what's going on with this? This is the motion he made that y'all already discussed, but you wouldn't be at the table with it. Why are we changing going up now? What's the change? Is it because the county saying they're not gonna do it for $400,000? And if we either do it that way, or they're gonna have to go up on taxes? I was in that first meeting, and I'm pretty sure I heard it.
I'm sure, I don't know why Councilman Scarborough came up with the number $400,000 at that meeting, but what I do know, the reason why he came up with $400,000 at the time is because he thought that we were gonna have to give the court fines over to the county. And as the agreement is now, we're not.
He
So
didn't.
if you take what this $500,000 and subtract out what the court fines are, you come back really, really close to that $400,000.
Well, why wasn't that explained in your motion?
The
Why was
motion was,
that?
the motion was to start negotiations with the sheriff's department, with the mayor, the administrator, and the city attorney. That $400,000 was the beginning point for them to start negotiating.
That was your motion.
That
Your
was my
motion
motion.
said not to exceed 400,000.
That was, it was a motion, not a contract.
That's what your motion.
Where would you get your motion from? You
Council.
made this up?
council, we
Yes, I
could
made
have,
this up.
we
You-
could have
just you.
entered, Councilman Colors, I could have entered into a contract for 400,000, but anything above and beyond that comes back here, and that's why we're here. But at that time, we couldn't go into negotiations or final negotiations on some number because we hadn't been able to start negotiations because of the police department was still there. But that was a number close to the amount if all of the fines would go to the county. But now, with the contract or the amounts that Sherry and them have reached with the county, we keep municipal court and the municipal fines continue to come to us instead of paying for the county.
Have the county seen this contract? Have the county commissioners seen this contract? Since this is a contract between us and the county, have they read over this contract? Because I see a lot of flaws in here that is on that last back page, the terms. If we wanted, the city wanted to get out of this agreement with them in a year, it's for a year's term. We want to get out of this agreement, we got to pay court costs for them to do this. Now, who made this up, the county or the city? Did y'all read that? We cannot get out of this unless if we go to court, Superior Court, we can't get out of this unless, we pay the court
The
costs.
county started the original agreement, and then we forwarded it to our lawyers, and they did some adjustments on it, and we went back and forth several times.
So, the county haven't met yet, so when did they go over this agreement, all the county commissioners? Who made this agreement? Was it all the county commissioners making this agreement, or just the chairperson? Because at the last meeting, I thought I heard Sam say, they don't meet until the 14th. We meet before they do, and this one was, y'all supposed to came back to the table and asked for some additional money. But you're asking for it now, quickly, for what reason?
Now, I have no idea if the county commissioners have seen the contract. I don't know if David Tyler has provided it to them. I mean, David Tyler, I know the sheriff has seen it, and Sam Moore has seen it. Our lawyers have looked over it, their lawyers have looked over it, but to speak for whether the chairman, the board of commissioners have seen it, I have no.
So let me ask you this, if they see this and they don't pass, what y'all gonna do? If they haven't
Can
seen
you
it?
explain that?
If we pass this one and then it goes to the county and they wanna change something, or if they don't pass it for whatever reason, then it's sort of like a negotiation where it would come back and we could consider whatever they're.
Okay, if that's the case, then we need to consider this term and condition already for us, for our fact. Why should we pay to negotiate that we don't wanna do this contract anymore? Number 7, explain that to me. This is a contract we could approve, but you still, number 7, listen, when I read that, I was so public to hear. Yeah.
You want me to read
Yes,
it? Okay.
yes.
Any controversy arising under this agreement shall be heard before the Superior Court of Wilkes County. Any party seeking to enforce this agreement shall be entitled to reasonable costs and attorney's fees related to the enforcement of the obligations of this agreement.
That's, anybody just wanna get out this contract, as we in the city, and if the party had to pay, who's the party had to pay the attorney fees? We had to pay for the county, right?
What it's saying is if there's a situation where one party is not,
That's correct. If one don't wanna be in this agreement, they have to pay the attorney fees.
and that's because there's a term on the agreement of 1 year, so that's sort of
That is
standard.
very clear. Point is, I'm not because, why are we going in a contract like this? Knowing that we can't get on this, we're paying some attorney fees. And we always talking about saving money. Who made this contract? Who was all at the table when this contract was made? None of us district one was there, because you should have seen all this. Who made this up? Who made the initial contract up right here?
The contract was made in conjunction with one that was provided from the county attorney that our office has.
Okay, but
reviewed,
I
and
need
they
to know
made changes
person,
to it.
the person that made this contract. Who's sitting at the table making this contract? What people?
Well, there
Was it the administrator and Sam, or Sam and this person, or who made this contract up?
Well, I'm not sure who, I mean, I know that we received a copy of a proposed contract from the county attorney's office. And I know that our attorneys have reviewed it and made changes to it and sent it back. And then we received, and my understanding is this is the final version.
This is the
of it.
final version, and the rest of the county commission haven't seen this. Why are we sitting at this table, sitting at the table, all council members, when everybody could be here and go over all this? Why are we trying to confirm this contract today?
Council,
I'm
we
talking
got,
to the city administrator, she's operating. Why are we doing it today?
Because it's something that the city needs to agree on. Yes, we agree to this contract, then it'll go back to the county, and the county will decide whether they agree to it or whatever, and it'll just come back and forth. So
Well-
we have to start somewhere.
If I ain't mistaken, you said they already looked at it, and you already looked at it. Why are we trying to do this today and not wait till the regular council meeting, or get all council at this table so we agree? Why are we trying to do this contract today, Administrator? You run the city, tell me. And don't tell me what they've done. I don't know why you doing it. 'Cause
I'm not
this-
saying what they've done, I'm saying what I have done, and that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. What I'm
Yeah, get me to
explaining
understand.
is that we had 2 meetings, you were at the first one.
Uh,
We decided that we had to go over numbers, David Tyler and I, because he knows the numbers for the county very well, and with my past position, I know the numbers just, well for the city. So we sat down to do negotiations back and forth, me and him, trying to figure out, okay, what's reasonable from what we originally had with the county? What of this part is reasonable? I came up with $515,789, initial 1 year startup cost. That's not including the $16,000 drug task force. After talking to David, he said, look, let's just round it off to an even $500,000, and then the $16,000 as a drug task force. I think that is very reasonable. That's why we're here today, is to discuss it. You don't have to approve it, but I think that the contract that you have in your hand is a reasonable contract for the city of Washington to get the coverage that they have had in the past and will continue to get, and in some cases better.
What
with this
cases
number.
would be better? What cases would be better?
Let's, explain, council, when we met with Mark and them, after we originally left the council meeting, had authority to negotiate a contract, Mark, we entered into a temporary agreement with the sheriff to start paying him so he could hire officers or pay additional overtime for his officers till the final contract was met. Mark knows how many officers he would like to run to keep the same level of service in the city. He does not want to go out and hire all these officers till he knows we have a contract passed from the city. So for him to go ahead and to hire his additional officers, he wants to know he has a contract from the city. Because if not, he's working a lot of overtime till it passes. And that's the reason we wanted to get it finalized and settled on so he can go ahead and get his officers hired. So the officers from the police department that he's gonna hire can go and be hired and brought on is the reason we're trying to go ahead and do it.
Okay, let me ask this question right quick. What was the final number that Chief Glenn gave you to run this city department? What was the final total number she said you run the department? How much money? Was it $60,000?
Well, it's about 6,000. You don't
$600,000?
remember? Well,
It was down to, I think, from 1.42
no.
to, it was
You-
down
you-
to 800 and something thousand
Yeah, and the
dollars.
fines, we're not talking about the fines.
What the
No,
actual?
I'm not talking about the fines, I'm talking about, it was 1.4 million expenses, or 1.04 million expenses, and she had cut expenses down to like 800,000.
What is her actual, see, y'all add those fees, her actual budget, what is her actual budget?
Her actual budget in this piece of paper that I handed out to everybody for 2014 was $1,044,800.
Wait, hold on a minute, now, see, that's why I get confused at.
Let her finish explaining
Okay.
it, so then she'll
Okay.
answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah, the total expenditures for the police department is $1,044,800. That's expenditures. We had in the budget $170,000 of anticipated court fine revenue. That's not a guarantee. I can tell you that as of now, we've gotten in $61,708. So, if we were to get in total, what we had budgeted, $170,000, it would have came in at $856,000. If we got in every penny of what we had budgeted for revenues.
But as of right now, we only at 61,000, we had budgeted 170,000, we are in the end of July.
$864,500 if we get in $170,000 worth of revenue.
Okay, but she actually reduced her budget from the, it's 850, 860, where you at, down to 600, about $66,000. That's what she cut her budget.
And she cut
She
her
did.
expenses.
Her budget wasn't
Down
cut
to-
down to $600,000.
Her budget was cut down to 800 and something.
It wasn't
It's a
cut down to
million.
600.
She was counting revenue.
You sure it wasn't cut down to 600 some $1,000?
If you're including revenue.
Was
You're
it cut?
including getting to
Was
150.
it cut down to 600 some $1,000?
She didn't cut her revenue. She kept the revenue the same, and she cut her expenses by 200 and something thousand, which brings it down to 800 and something $1,000.
So her budget wasn't cut down to 6.
No, I mean, the expenditures were cut to 800 and something
Her
thousand.
budget wasn't cut down to 600,000.
I hadn't seen that from
Okay,
those
I'm
tests.
gonna refresh your memory. That's, okay,
So-
when she got up in that last council meeting, she stated that she had cut her budget at, she said she had talked to you, Sheriff.
Mhm.
Okay,
She did.
now, I just wanna get you the city administrator. When she actually cut her budget down to 600, I think it was 666.
It was.
All right, now, do you think it's even feasible with 600 and something $1,000 to keep that department, and with the budget cuts that I proposed to me and you discussed of $329,000, do you think it's feasible that the city could have still saved money and kept that department? Is it feasible?
Not when the payroll itself was, $830,000 in the payroll. No, I don't think it's feasible.
You don't even think, since she cut her budget down to 600 some $1,000,
The payroll portion of it was 830,000. I remember that. The
She
cut
didn't cut
included
overtime?
two
She didn't cut all-
employees. There's no way that you're gonna cut 830,300 and cut only two employees to get it down to what you're talking about. there's no way. Those numbers don't work.
Cut two
Those numbers don't work.
It included cutting 2 employees.
How many employees was total that was under this budget?
Under the budget,
Oh, in this-
16.
No, she didn't have 16 employees, I think it was 14. Let's don't count some she didn't have. The actual employees that was there was 14, wasn't it?
but we had in the budget to have an additional officer
But-
that had not been hired.
But
So it was either 15 or 16.
But you keep saying what we had in the budget, we're trying to get the number that, the sheriff department gonna need 9 officers. Now, you tell me 9 officers can run under $5,000, $100,000, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
And she can run her department with 9 officers for $500,000.
Well, you're saying 9
Tell me the
officers and there
difference,
was
tell me
15.
the difference with the
That's 6
sheriff running
officers
at 500.
gone.
What's his total price, y'all asking again, was 5,000,
It's 592.
That wasn't
592?
proposed though, it wasn't proposed by, the chief to do 9 officers. It was only proposed to cut out 2.
Okay, my question to you again is, if the sheriff department can run with 9 officers, why couldn't it?
I don't know
Proposed?
why the chief couldn't
She
run
couldn't
without
run with
9
9
officers.
Councilman
But we
Cummings.
already,
Proposal was not, she did not come back with a proposal for 9 officers.
but we're giving the sheriff the equipment and the cars. Cause if we didn't do that, we had to buy some more equipment and cars, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so y'all never sat at the table and negotiated with, the chief that, could you cut your budget down to so and so we can try to keep our department? You didn't do that, did you?
Yes.
Y'all did do that?
Yes.
And what did
She
she say?
said she can do
Yes,
it.
she and I had sat down because I think her and the mayor had spoken and wanted to go over numbers and see what we could cut. And part of the cuts was to cut 2 officers out. And then some other overhead, supplies, try to cut back on fuel and stuff like that.
Did she do that?
That's where, the number that you're talking about,
Mhm.
that was, I think.
So it's not feasible for her to run that department with 9 officers like the sheriff department is doing?
She, Councilman Tutt, her estimated per cost per employee, if you take all benefits and everything across the board, around $55,000 per employee.
Mm-hmm.
If she takes 2 off, that's $110,000.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff officer's running his costs at around $45,000 an employee.
Mm-hmm.
So even with 2 off, that's only $110,000. He's running his cost per employee around $10,000 a year cheaper,
Okay,
just on how they run the sheriff's department.
okay.
So,
Yeah, I understand. Go ahead.
so that's the reason, well, yeah, can she cut it by 2? Yes, that's only $110,000, but still her cost per employee is higher.
But
Even if we were to run 9, just like they run it, it'd still be higher.
why would
just per
still be
employee.
high? That's why I'm getting my, why would
Because
still be
of-
high? The
Because
payroll?
of the city payroll.
And I had a conversation with, I think the officer they would even took a cut in pay. See,
See, I've heard that too, but that was never presented to me. That
See,
was a
that-
proposal that was done in the police department that, it's my understanding that the chief turned down and did not want to
Okay.
come to me, to us,
Okay.
to look at. So
okay,
I
great,
can't speak
great.
on that.
See, this is why we're here today. That's why you have a police committee. That's why I should have started at the police committee, discuss all these negotiations with all these numbers. And you, the city attorney, and the mayor, y'all should have sat in and discussed all of these numbers, what we have today. See, but we went and voted to do this first. Now we are coming back and negotiating numbers, and the numbers not adding up with you all either. 400,000, now we up to, what, 516,000, which is gonna be agreement, which is gonna get passed. And then my next question, where is this money coming from? The extra 116,000, where it's gonna come from?
The same place that the money was gonna come from to run the.
And what's that, and where is
police
that?
department. It's general fund money.
Is it unbudgeted money? That money we put in there to offset this here cost? No, it's coming out of the reserve.
Part of the whole budget is coming out of the reserve.
That's my point. See, citizens, that's what I'm talking about.
Councilman Tutt, it's not unbudgeted money. We fund the police department, we're just not paying as much. We're gonna go over these numbers. To sum it up, we found out a cheaper way to provide the same level of service to the citizens. We can say, hey, Mr. Sheriff, we're not gonna have a police department. Go figure out how to protect our city. He can do that, but we may not have the same level of service.
Why?
We're saying,
Why wouldn't we have the same amount of service? Because he had to add those police departments, and also it'll cost the taxpayer. but you're double taxing the citizens in the city of Washington. That's why. Tell the citizens that.
So we're saying to citizens, we know you live in the city, we know you want a higher level of service because you live in the city. Instead of paying for a police department, we're gonna provide you the same level of service in the city with two officers on the street every day, and we're gonna do it at a cheaper price. And we're willing to pay you, Mr. Sheriff, this to provide that higher levels of service to the citizens. And that's what this contract is for.
Well, this contract is for you to screw up the police department and trying to get some service that the sheriff can automatically do himself. And we don't pay the sheriff or the county anything. They will still have to have that service inside the city limits. But the county, everybody will pay because they said it's gonna raise taxes. You were sitting there when he said it, you were sitting there when he said it. If we didn't pay anything, they have to go up on tax, because that's all they get their money from. We're paying this, and we're gonna double tax the people in the city limit because we're gonna have to pay this. The citizens are paying this because you still using the money.
But that's because.
No, we already pay county taxes. That's our right to be serviced by the sheriff department, whether we have a police department or not. That's the same way you did when they had the jail down here. They forced it, as Chairman said, you forced that on them. So same thing with this. You didn't ask them, y'all forced this on them, so they got to have the service. Well, we like it or not, and it ain't because we wanna help them. They have to have the reliable service to deal with this whole county. Now, you wanna double taxate the citizen inside the city and won't admit it. And y'all come up with this, you did away with the police department because number one, that's the only way around of trying to get around the administrator to get rid of the chief of police and everything else. So you went to the back door. Just be honest about it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna approve this packet, and y'all can sit down and talk about you wanna get the same amount of service. The same amount of service gonna be done, whether we give them $400 or $500 some $1,000 because they have to do it anyway. Then it's gonna come back with the county got to raise taxes. And that's what we're doing to our citizens inside the city. We're raising their tax because we're being double taxed for a service that we shouldn't be double taxed for. And you gonna sit here and don't know it.
I need to ask the attorney a question.
It is, he is committing to us to keep these officers in town.
He gonna have to commit anyway.
He does not have to commit if it's up to him.
Well, if that's the case, we have to deal with them when it's come to election time, whether we get the service or not. We are double taxing our folks in the city because you wanna keep up the level of service, we should have kept our police department like this. The neighboring county says this is, the mayor of the neighboring county said this is, you got to read the back rules of what's going on here. You're ready to pay, you're not seeing the headline, you should see it,
It's double taxation.
double taxation. That, I didn't know that.
Councilman Scarborough.
I respectfully disagree, and I move we accept this proposal. That's-
That is really great.
I have a question for the attorney. Can I ask the attorney
This-
one question?
We
I
got a
make this as a
motion,
motion.
and then we'll have, if we got a second, then we'll have discussion.
A second.
We got a motion and a second, discussion.
Discussion.
All right, Councilman Taylor.
Mr. Attorney, do the city, even with this contract, are we legally bound to pay any monies to the sheriff department?
Under this contract?
Just period?
You're talking about, are you
Even
talking about,
before the contract?
you're talking about the city of Washington?
The city of
Georgia?
Washington.
If the city of Washington, Georgia approves this contract, once it's,
Yeah.
and if the county approves it and if they sign it, then the city would be responsible to pay under the terms of the contract.
I'm talking about before these, the terms, we said to say.
We're not legally bound to pay anything, is that correct?
Not the contract.
We ain't talking about contract, we're not legally bound to give the county any money, period, to do service for the county, all.
You're talking about outside of this contract?
Outside this contract, are we legally bound to even come say we're gonna pay you? Because, are we legally bound to give the county any money to do any service?
All right.
Legally bound,
If the city does not, if the city.
if
is
we don't
gonna-
give him no money, cause the mayor said, if we don't give them no money whatsoever, we ain't gonna have the service in it. Is that true?
Well, what I'll say is, under the state law, in this situation where a city asks the county to provide law enforcement services, the city is actually required to pay the costs to the county for what it is.
No, you said if we ask them to give us law enforcement. Once again, the sheriff department is over the county, we are in the city of county. Now, what you just stated, listen to what you just said, we're not legally bound to give the sheriff department any money to cover the city. because we're in the county.
While we're paying taxes.
And we're already paying tax, why we paying tax
But
and
what
we're
I'm
leaving
saying
it
is,
back?
under the state law, when we have this scenario.
Now, you talking about having this scenario that the city won't give them money, yeah, we'll be
Well,
legal
we're
about
saying
that,
where
right?
the city is entering into agreement with the county to provide law enforcement services.
But that's the point, we ain't got to enter into no kind of agreement to get
That's-
service.
I was under the impression that had already happened, that's why I was just saying.
No, it-
We, to ask for a level of service, we need to pay them. If not, we're at we're just at the level of service that they decide to provide.
The question, was.
We're asking for a level of service. He says, I can provide you this level of service, which is additional than his normal, but this is what it will cost. And it's cheaper than the level of service the citizens been getting.
No, it's not.
The year one cost, Sherry, is $592,000. That's our initial, money that we got to start up front with.
No, let's
What-
let her.
What is this?
Let's let her explain that. Let's get to the numbers.
No, the, $592,000 includes a transfer of the vehicles, which is a non-cash exchange item.
Explain that.
Okay. The, they need 9 sheriff's vehicles, is what they had anticipated. They had anticipated purchasing them new at an estimated cost of $270,000, divided out over 5 years, would be $54,000 a year. And I asked David Tyler that if they took our vehicles, if we transferred them over, and I've had our insurance agent to go over the vehicles to figure out what the value of them are. It came in at under $76,000. So the value of our vehicles at $76,000, if we could transfer those to the county and save a total of $270,000 or $54,000 over 5 years, which would have been in addition to our contract. And he said yes, that we could do that because we have no, the value of them if we were to have bids and have them bid out, they come in around $800 a piece. Typically, that's what we've seen. Now, we do have a couple of new ones, but anyway, the total value was $76,000.
So we're giving it to the sheriff.
We are transferring it to the sheriff's department, yes,
I know
to
you-
offset.
I know you're saying transfer, they just,
Yes.
you're giving the cars away.
Yes, to offset the cost of new vehicles, because our officers that he's hiring has to have something to ride in, and so.
Okay.
That's
He
what
had said, Councilman Tutt, if you don't wanna give us those vehicles to provide the service you want,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to go buy some cars.
Mhm.
And for us to go buy the cars, it's gonna cost you more money per year to provide those services, because we're buying new cars. We said, okay, how about you take all our police cars, since we got them, and then what will our cost be to the city, instead of having to pay them to go buy new cars? That's why they're getting the stuff, it's just like a taser gun. A taser gun's like $600, a used one, we can give them our used ones, cause if not, we can sell a taser gun, a used one's $55, that's all they're worth. So, he's able to get that stuff from us, less money out of his pocket, therefore it's cheaper that we gotta pay them, especially for starter.
I don't, you're saying that because of one reason, because once again, if we let the county run, they have to buy this and the taxpayer have to pretty much, it goes taxation the city people for this.
And my last
Explain
question,
it.
see, all these discussions we're talking about now, this the only thing I have ever asked. We've been going through proper committees when we do stuff, that's why we got committees. But committees is only used at y'all discretion, District 2. If I propose something, I have to go through Congress and all the way down the line, go through the committees, and they don't even make it to the committee. But you come up here, and we did not go through this by the proper procedure. That's what you were explaining to me. I wish all this could have been done initially, and then we could have voted. But we did it the opposite way. We voted, and then we come up with numbers, and now, lo and behold, I got to sit here and vote on it. And then, let's talk about the service package. Let's go there.
Well,
we
we
can talk
got,
about that.
we got a
What?
motion and a second on the table to discuss the contract. Then,
Okay.
as an executive session, discuss the severance package, because that's employee
Okay.
matter. Is there any other discussion on the contract?
Yes, last discussion, I wanna know why we gonna sit here and agree on this contract. I ain't heard from those three over there yet, so they already done sat somewhere and discuss this contract and draft it and it's ready to go. Y'all looked at the contract, I mean, you heard from you in 3 years. Y'all
No, we
speak up.
haven't, no, we haven't.
So why y'all gonna agree on something you hadn't even
Councilman
read?
Cullen, Councilman Allen,
That don't make any sense.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to first thank you
I
and,
know you do.
Councilman.
and Ms. Sherry for
Wow.
the hard work that you've done on this contract. I'd like to also remind the citizens that the bottom line is we're saving money.
No, we're not.
City, for the
Councilman
citizens.
Cullen,
What?
Councilman Allen's talking.
Mr. Mayor, I call for the vote.
We got a call for the vote. Got a second on the call for the vote. Second, all in favor of the call for the vote? We got a call for the vote. We got a motion and a second to enter in this contract with the county for $516,000. As stated, the $16,000 of that goes to pay the drug task force. And, we got a motion second, all in favor? All opposed?
Are you saying you're amending this contract or just another contract? Because the first one was 400,000.
That was not, Councilman Cullors, that was not a contract for $400,000. That was giving me the authority to start negotiation of the contract. If it was under
Wow.
$400,000, it would not have
It's
to
done
come.
pass, y'all. You had
Sir.
to read through this pass. Next item.
But, this is the final contract. To sum it,
People all raise hell with y'all about this.
so, also to let you know, at the original part, the county was gonna get the revenues from the fines. Through, now with this, the city still has municipal court and the city still gets revenues from the fines through court.
Wow. Just put this in
It's,
that contract.
it's in there. Well, it's not in there, it's just, it's a state law that a city has to have municipal court and traffic tickets
Go.
within the city are turned into city court and therefore the revenues come to the city.
Okay, so let me explain. So if GSP or anyone get a citation in the city limits, that revenue, that ticket will go to the municipal court. That's what you're saying?
On certain incidents and where he's pulled over, yes, it'll go to the city. And
I see
through
that's-
that meeting, it is a question on that, and the sheriff has asked it, if they're pulled over on a state highway,
Okay.
where does it go? But if they're pulled over on, we know a city street that's not a straight highway, it
Okay.
comes to the city.
So,
That is a question whether
Okay,
it's on a
state
state highway or not.
so they got the discretion to take it to probate or municipal then, right? Is that,
First you
No,
gotta
sir,
go through the
it's-
code.
It's,
What is the city
it's,
code? They don't know what you're
it's a
talking
city code or ordinance that says that the sheriff's working out, but it has to come to, tickets in the city come to a state, to the municipal court. And therefore, the revenues come to the city.
that's the only thing I understand with what you're saying about the deputy. What I'm just saying about GSP, if I was to go out here now, Highway 44, let's just say Highway 44, speeding, whatever, and he write the ticket out, normally they can write the ticket for municipal or probate. What I'm saying, whether those, even though Highway 44 is, in the city limits, that's where a lot of revenue we gonna miss at if we can't get those. But is it up, what I'm saying, is it up to the GSP discretion to do that?
I don't think in that, I think in that situation, you have the same, it'd be the same scenario as it was before, where there'd be a level of discretion there.
Okay.
On a
This is
state,
my
on a
last
state
question.
highway.
And-
Okay, so,
And
but,
years ago, remember, they wasn't giving us any,
yeah,
and we went
anything.
and talked to them,
So,
and started
so,
doing it.
so the sheriff, if they write their tickets over in the city, those revenues will come to us.
To us.
And so if they out in the county, then they go to the probate.
Right, so we still get the revenues from court. As of now, we know exactly what our law, what our protection will be every year. We know what we'll budget every year for it, and that's what the cost will be. The drug task force, for again, through this contract, half of the cost. And,
We're gonna get
and
it
it's a
regardless.
benefit, so that's,
Double taxation.
and it's not double taxation.
Yes, it is.
And, it's, the contract is passed, citizens, if you got any questions on numbers, we have written up a sheet to explain to you the numbers, because some of it may get confused around this table, that you can take it and read it and explain the numbers, and why we're here, or what's the benefit of doing what we're doing. But Sheriff Moore is doing a good job, he's committed to us doing a good job. You're gonna have the same level of protection that you've been had, you're gonna still have it now. And and it's better for the citizens, it's better for the operation of the city, and it's a good decision. So, and the sheriff has picked up some of the police officers that were hired here through that. So that's how we own the contract. Council, we gotta discuss the severance package for the city employees, and to do that, we'll need a motion second to go in executive session, and then decide on it, and then come out for